So it is me, Elizabeth here, or Nurse Zabe here on YouTube and Instagram. Shout out to me Instagram. I like posting over on Instagram. I don't do it super frequently and I'm a little awkward, but you already knew that tuning in. So today I have already filmed my video on tips for exclusive pumping, how I pump 50 ounces a day as an exclusive pumper, and I wanted to come on over here, and I thought about doing this as an intro to my last video, but if I did that, that video would have been like 17 million years long because I have a lot of thoughts and feelings. So I just kind of wanted to go through like why I exclusively pumped, my journey for exclusive pumping, and obviously this isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea. For me, this is more like cathartic than anything else because I have had a lot of thoughts and feelings, and I have a lot to say about it, and so me filming this video is as much for myself as it is for viewers who might find this helpful. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. I have successfully breastfed a baby from birth until 22 months. At 22 months, I got pregnant with baby number 2, and so I weaned baby number 1. And I was so excited to finally have a brand new little baby to nurse again. And Holden was born, and he was beautiful and perfect, and his delivery was a little bit stressful, but he latched on in the delivery room and he did pretty well. I never had any pain with nursing him. I didn't have pain with nursing either of my children, but he was just a really sleepy nurser. And at the time when we were discharged, we were seeing a family practice doctor for our pediatrician who was very laissez-faire and very chill and calm, and in general I appreciate that, but he didn't have us come back for an appointment until 10 days after Holden was born. And I was a bit concerned because Holden was a really sleepy nurser and I didn't feel like my milk was coming in at all. And I thought, well, you know, he's my second baby, maybe it's just not as dramatic. And so I called and I made an appointment with lactation at work, and I went in and I saw them and they checked his bilirubin level and that was good. And, you know, we did a weighted feed and he really wasn't transferring very much milk and his weight was still down. And so the lactation consultant was like, yeah, go ahead and pump after feeding him. Let's get your milk in and then go from there. So I pumped after feeding him for maybe a day or 2. We went and saw them at 3 days. So my milk came in between like 4 and 5 days postpartum, and it came in full force. I had a very good supply with May, and so I was hopeful to have a good supply with Holden again. Once my milk came in, Holden really struggled with latching and maintaining a latch. He really struggled with my letdowns, which I don't find to be particularly heavy. It's not like they would shoot across the room if somebody wasn't latched on to me, but he had a shallow latch that I could not get to be deeper, and he struggled with my letdowns. So based on that information, even though I had no pain with latching him, I was pretty sure that he had some ties. And so I spoke with the lactation consultant at work, and she looked and she said, you know, I don't see anything super apparent as far as a tongue tie, but I'm not the best at recognizing the posterior ties, the ties that can be a little bit more insidious because they're not so obvious, but can cause a lot of issues with breastfeeding. She watched him breastfeed and she said, based on how he's nursing, I think that definitely could be an issue. So we set up an appointment with a pediatric dentist, and we went to Holden's his 1 month appointment, and he was gaining weight, but he definitely kind of slowed down. He had initially been in like the 76th percentile for weight, and he dropped down to the 25th. So at a month he was 9 pounds 5 ounces, and he had been born at 8 pounds 4 ounces, so he still was doing great, and he was just chugging along. He was having wet and poopy diapers. So I had the appointment with the dentist for after the holidays because Holden was born in the beginning of November. So I figured that would be fine. At 6 weeks postpartum, he just was still such a sleepy nurser. He was sleeping really well, but I was having a hard time even waking him up to feed. And I just noticed that he wasn't getting any bigger. He wasn't seeming to gain weight at all. May at this point, and I know we shouldn't compare children because they just are so vastly different, but May at this point was like, had been like 12 pounds or something. She was out of newborn clothing. Holden could still fit into all of his newborn clothing. So I was at Target and I bought an infant scale, which I don't necessarily recommend doing. The ones that you can get at home, really, they're not the best, and with babies, like, every little ounce matters. But when I weighed him on that, he was still 9 pounds 5 ounces, so he had gained no weight in 2 weeks. And I knew that I had the milk, and I was very stressed out by this and upset, and I called the pediatric dentist in tears, and I was like, my baby's not gaining weight, like, I'm really freaking out. So they fit me in December 21st. And we did do a lip and a tongue tie revision. He did have a slight posterior tie and a lip tie. So we released those. And then that was a procedure, and I could make a video about lip and tongue ties as well. I'm trying to work with one of the lactation consultants who helped me. Working with her, I want to make a video because she's like world renowned for lip and tongue ties. She's amazing. But I hadn't seen her yet at this point. Anyway, so we went in and we got them released, and then Holden, I mean, it hurts. I know that they say that it doesn't, but like it definitely like is sore. And I think that the benefits of releasing a lip and tongue tie, not just for breastfeeding, but for everything in their future, definitely is worth it compared to the pain that they experience. But they are painful. Holden was like screaming, refusing to nurse, and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? But anyway, so I was putting him to breast. I was working with one of my lactation consultants at work still, putting him to breast, pumping, giving him that milk. And I did that for a week and a half, like all through Christmas. I was doing that, and it was really, really taxing on our Christmas. Right before New Year's, Holden finally was latching and feeding well again, and I was feeling really, really encouraged. And so we met with the world-renowned lactation specialist who came to our house, and she said, you know, everything looks good. Here are some stretches and things you can continue to do. At this point too, we'd also been meeting with a craniosacral therapist to help Holden. Retrospectively, we should have met with her before the release as well, but I didn't know that at the time, and the release was very like, I called the pediatric dentist and we saw him that day and he did the release. We went and did a weighted feed at work. Holden had transferred 3 ounces. He was doing really well. We were good. So he fed really well for about a month, and I am very thankful for that month that we had. But then he was doing much better with my letdowns. He would feed through the letdowns, and then he would come off and get frustrated with the flow of the milk. And he had just been breastfeeding. He hadn't been getting any bottles during this month. He was frustrated with the flow, and to me it seemed like he was struggling with getting, after the letdown, he was really struggling with getting more milk to come out. Because when he had had his release done and I had been pumping so much, I had created a pretty hefty oversupply. But as my supply was regulating to what he was demanding, he was having to work more for the milk, and he was struggling. And Holden's response, which is kind of funny now, because like when he sees table food, or when when we're eating and he's not eating, he freaks out. But Holden's response then, as the sweet little sleepy baby that he was, when he was not getting enough at the breast, he was a little frustrated. He would pop on and off trying to continue to get more milk, and then he would just fall asleep, and he would sleep. He was a really, really good sleeper. Some babies who aren't getting enough are really fussy. He was the opposite. He would just sleep. He would sleep through the night. He would sleep for 8 hours, which is every mom's dream. But he would sleep so much, and I could not wake him up to nurse him. He wouldn't wake up, and he would sleep so much that in the morning would, you'd expect a wet diaper after sleeping 8 hours, especially from a baby who's 2 months old. But he would wake up in the morning with dry diapers. So I knew he wasn't getting enough again. So we were kind of like, okay, back to the drawing board. He was falling into lower and lower growth curves at this point, after he had started gaining weight well again. And I was meeting with every single specialist, and I also, at this point, if you can't tell, this is emotional for me, At this point, I was being heavily affected by postpartum depression, and I couldn't sleep, and I was so fixated on his feeding and him getting enough. I would lie awake in the morning waiting for him to wake up, terrified that he again would have a dry diaper. And I was back meeting with the cranial sacral therapist. I was meeting with a speech language pathologist to work on strengthening his oral motor skills. I was meeting with the lactation consultants at work. I was meeting with the tongue tie lactation consultant, and everybody was so helpful. And I honestly, like, part of me wonders if we had just kept pushing, if he would have eventually gotten it, if his mouth muscles would have become stronger, because that's what he was lacking, was strength. If those would have gotten strong enough that he would have been able to breastfeed. I don't know, because there was a point in all of this when I also was heading back to work, and I just was so terrified of losing my supply and trying to maintain my supply while also trying to put him to the breast, while also trying to make sure that he was getting enough to eat, that I made the decision that the best thing for my whole family, including myself, and especially myself, for my mental health, which obviously affects everybody in your family, was for me to exclusively pump. And it was something I always said, oh, I would never exclusively pump. Like, that just sounds so hard. And it was so hard, but it was a lot easier than what I was doing, which was breastfeeding, pumping, giving the baby the milk that I had pumped. And that was a 24-hour-a-day job. And it would have been one thing if I just had Holden, but I had a 2.5-year-old too. And there were days when I was just a puddle on the couch crying because I was so upset about all of this, and I wasn't being the mother to either of my children that I wanted to be. And that was the point when I said, you know, I'm done. And like, when I did go back to work, and I still was trying to breastfeed Holden right in the very beginning, I was happy to be at work, because at work I could just pump and not be stressed out about him not getting enough milk when he was latching. And so when I had that realization, that's when I kind of was like, that can be how I feel all the time. I can just pump for him at home and know that he's getting enough and not be stressed out about it. And clearly I have a lot of feelings and emotions, but the Elizabeth who was making that decision at that point, that was the very, very best decision that I could make for myself and my family. I still clearly have a lot of feelings about it, and if I look like I'm about to cry during this whole video, it is because I am about to cry. My son is happy and healthy and thriving, and that honestly is the most important thing to me. Both of my kids are happy and healthy and thriving. I don't know how long I will carry this in my heart. I said this in my last video if you guys didn't see, but you know, obviously fed is the expectation. We have to feed our children. Breastfeeding is the biological norm. And if you want to breastfeed and it's not working, I do believe that exclusive pumping can be a solution, and it was a solution for us. But it's not what you want to be doing, more than likely. And I'm so thankful for a supportive family and coworkers and people who helped me along my journey. And I'm so thankful that I had the supply to be able to exclusively pump for Holden. But breastfeeding is the biological norm, and I really believe that that's why it's so hard, because there is this innate instinctual drive inside of us to feed our babies from the breast, especially if that's something that you also personally desire, and then when it's not working, it is devastating. I am thankful that I had the supply to feed Holden, and I was able to turn the hardship into something good. I have donated 2,000 plus ounces of milk to mamas in my area, and giving my milk to other moms and to other babies to help them thrive really has been the very best part of all this, besides obviously my own baby thriving. My postpartum depression, when I decided to exclusively pump, I also at that same point in time started on Zoloft, and I went and saw a therapist. All of those things were immensely helpful, but there's still a part of me that's sad, clearly. How many times can I say clearly, but I'm crying in a video. There's still a part of me that mourns that breastfeeding relationship that we didn't get to have. But I made the best decision for us at the time. At that time where I was mentally and not knowing exactly what the future was going to hold, that was the very best decision. And if that is a decision that you are struggling with too, just know that it can work really, really well. And I now have a super fat child who's like in the 86th percentile for weight ever since he started solids. I mean, he's so fat. He's so heavy. And having a fat baby is not the goal, but it is funny that that was such a stress, and now he just is effortlessly chunky. Anyway, if you've made it through this whole video, I'm sorry for my rambles, but I appreciate you watching. Bye guys.